Welcome back to the channel and good afternoon. This is going to be a video on maintaining a bike. It's not really aimed at you bikers that have been doing it for years. You all should know what you're doing. This video is aimed really solely at people that have just bought a bike, just started riding, and they don't really know how to do the basic checks. You either haven't been shown or you're just not quite sure. Now, I've gone through all of this with Louise this morning, so we've done what I'm going to do on the video now is what I've just done with Louise. We've gone over all the checks and I've shown her how to do it, and she's pretty confident that now she can do all these things on her own. So I thought it'd be a really good opportunity to just put a video out there and explain to you guys the basic checks you need to do on the bike. One, to keep the bike in great condition, and two, to make you safe when you're out there. So let's go through the 6 basic checks that I think you should do, some every day and some just every now and then, but really essential that those things are done. Now, in order for us to do this basic maintenance, we're going to need a few tools and a few bits of equipment. First thing we're going to need is some chain lube. I use chain lube by Muc-Off, great product, but you just need some chain lube that sprays on. Then you're going to need some engine oil. Now, this is 4-stroke engine oil. We're not servicing a 2-stroke bike here, we're servicing a 4-stroke bike. We're going to use 10W40, that's what it says in the service manual, that's what we're going to need, so we've got a litre of that just to top it up if needs be. Then you're going to need some basic oil, just some spray oil. I don't use WD-40, I use this XEP from Halfords, I just like it. But you can use any sort of lubricant oil, just to spray some bits and pieces on the bike. And then lastly, you're just going to need a selection of spanners. For the rear wheel, we're going to need to loosen the rear wheel to adjust the chain. I'll come to that in a bit. Now, these that I'm using, I've got a 19, 17, 13 and a 14. That may change on your bike, but the principle's the same. You just need to get the right size spanner that does the job. Now, I'm going to be showing you 6 steps, 6 very basic steps to keep your bike in great condition and keep you safe out on the road. The first 4 are checks you want to do every day, or every time you ride the bike, just before you go off, have fun. Just do these very basic checks. Like I say, they're going to keep the bike in great condition and keep you safe. The other 2 checks are going to be something you do periodically, maybe every fortnight, every 3 weeks, but they do need to be done. Now, when checking the tyres, you want to have a good look over the tyre itself. So you want to spin that back wheel just to make sure that there's nothing in there that shouldn't be in there. That, you know, that's stones. It could be a nail or a screw, anything like that. So just check the whole surface of the tyre, including the sidewall. We want to make sure that that's not got any cracks in it. Just overall, we want to make sure the tyre is in good condition and it doesn't have any foreign bodies. That goes with the same with the front wheel. You just want to get that front wheel spinning around. It's easier if you've got a centre stand on, but you can easily just have a look at the tyre, push the bike forwards a little bit, look at the next bit of the tyre, just to make sure you go all the way around and check that they are in really good condition. And that includes the tread. Now, I won't go into too much detail, but every tyre has a tread wear marker, so I can see in the middle of this tyre there's a little gauge. When it wears down to that little stump, that I know the tyres are thin and they need changing. So tread, condition of the tyre need to be checked. So step 2, a check you want to do just before you go out on your bike, is check that chain. Now, that chain needs to be in really good condition, but the visual check that you do on it just before you go out is just check the slack in the chain. We don't want that chain to be loose because there's a good chance it will fall off. So we just want to get you don't have to grab it with your hand, you get a bit of cloth or something, or you can just kick it with your foot. We just want to make sure that that chain hasn't got too much play in it. So if you wiggle the chain up and down like I'm doing now, you want no more than about 20 millimeters of travel, and that's roughly double the thickness of the chain either side. So that amount of travel I've got on there, because we have done this morning, is perfect. I've got about 20 mil on there. Any more than that, the chain does need adjusting. I will go through with how to adjust the chain in a moment. Check number 3, again a really important check before you go out on your bike, is the lights. Because if our lights are not working, our indicators are not working, and we don't realise, you're very unsafe. So it's very easy just to give them a quick visual check round, and that's just a simple case of switch your ignition on, come to the front of the bike. Yes, I can see my headlights working. Indicator, yeah, right. Indicator left, no problem, happy with that. They all work. I'll come round to the rear of the bike. It's easier if you come this side. I just want to check that my brake light works with my front brake. I can see that's working. My brake light's working with the rear brake. Perfect. Left and right indicator. All working fine. High beams on. Yeah, lovely. Just one thing to note, and it's not always the same with bikes. There's a light underneath here, is a clear light which illuminates the number plate. It's a legal requirement to have it just to make sure that works. But generally on motorbikes, it's all one thing. So if your rear light's working, your number plate's working. But just give that a little check, because that needs to be illuminated at night time. And then the last check, number 4, the checks that you want to do every time you go out on the bike is just to have a visual look around the bike, just to make sure that nothing's loose, nothing's falling off. There's lots of nuts and bolts on a motorcycle that you can see, so just have a look and just make sure everything's as it should be to the best of your knowledge. This caught us out the other day. We took Louise's bike out without checking it. We didn't take our own advice. The wing mirror wasn't tight, you know, it was flapping around like this. She got halfway down a dual carriageway and it span around, which was very off-putting for her. We had to pull over and do it on the side of the road. Had I checked that before, or had Louise checked it before she went out, we could have dealt with it here, tightened it up. So again, just a good visual check to make sure everything's tight, nothing's falling off. If you've got L plates, make sure they're on there. And just generally making sure the bike looks safe. Now I'm going to try and keep this really simple. For the purpose of this video, I've just slackened the chain off. So as you can see, Louise's chain is loose. You do not want it that loose. That's when it becomes dangerous. Up on her chain guard here, she's got the tolerances that are needed. Not every bike will have that, but I know with Louise's bike, we want between 15 and 20 millimeter of movement, and that's the movement of the chain up and down. So really 15 and 20 millimeters is like that, not like that. So that's the same on most bikes. It'll be about 20 mil, which is roughly the thickness of two chains back to back. So in order to adjust this chain, what we've got to do is undo the main nut here. So that's the spindle that goes through the wheel. You're going to need 2 spanners for that. In this case, we've got a 17 and a 19. I want the 17 on this side, just to keep that still, stop it spinning. And then I want to undo the main spindle itself. I don't want to undo it all the way, I just want to loosen it off so that I can move the back wheel within the frame. So that's now loose. To get some tension back into that chain, I'm going to use a 14 and a 13 mil spanner. Again, it might be different in your bike, but the principle is exactly the same. This little bit here is called a chain adjuster. So that, in effect, pulls the wheel backwards, which makes the chain tighter. So to pull that wheel backwards, we need to undo this nut here, which is a locking nut. So that's on the back of the adjuster. The main nut that's coming out the back of the adjuster is the one that's going to do all the adjustment. So really simply, all I want to do is put some adjustment into that. I want to tighten it up, and that then brings the wheel backwards. So just half a turn at a time. It might not take that much. And as I'm doing it, I'll just check that chain slack. So it needs some more. Until I get it to where I'm happy with that chain being 20 millimeters travel up and down. A bit more. Perfect. So that, if you look at the chain, before it was going up and down loads, now it's 20 mil. That's all I want. I don't want any more or any less than that. And please note, don't over tighten it. Over tighten it can really damage the chain. You want that amount of movement in there, and that's perfect. So we're going to keep that where it is. But because I've brought this side backwards, we need to check the other side the same. Otherwise the wheel's going to sit out of square. It's going to not sit straight, and the back wheel's going to want to go that way. Might want to go that way. How I do that is, if you look on this part of the frame, there's some marks. On the adjuster itself, there's another mark. So that's now telling me that I'm 3.5 marks back from the frame. So 3.5 marks there. My adjuster's in the middle of that half. I just want to go around the other side, and the same principle with the adjuster and bring that side back so it's exactly the same on these marks. So this side has to match that side, then you know your wheel's completely straight. So use these marks on the swinging arm as a guide to whether your wheel is going to be straight. So once you know that all the marks line up both sides, tighten that locking nut up. Let's just get the right spanners, they're all different sizes on this one. Tighten that locking nut up. We can then put the 17 back on that side just to stop it spinning, and then I can tighten up the main spindle nut itself. Now if you've got a torque wrench, you can put this up to the proper torque setting. I don't have one, and you'll find most people don't have one. So this needs to be tight, fairly tight, so put a bit of effort into it. Don't over tighten it by putting your foot on it, just a really nice push down. And there we go, that's the chain adjusted and the wheel aligned. And then don't forget to get some of your chain lube. A really good tip before you put chain lube on, if I can grab a cloth. On this cloth I've got some degreaser. It's just a bit of degreaser I've got from Halfords, nothing special. We want to give this chain a quick wipe. Now I'll give you some advice. Do not try and wipe the chain by spinning the wheel and holding the cloth in the chain. Very, very dangerous, and I'll tell you why. And I've seen it happen. If you're spinning that wheel and your finger gets trapped between the sprocket and the chain, I will promise you your finger will lose. It's gruesome. Please don't do that. The way I clean the chain is to pop it in gear. So just put that gear lever down. The wheel's locked off. It cannot spin. I will then grab my cloth with the degreaser on and just give that chain a really good wipe. We want to get all the crud off it, all the road grease and sand and dirt that's stuck to the old chain lube. Get it off as best you can. And it doesn't take much to make the chain look really nice. And just repeat that, spin the wheel, repeat that. You can just pull it back up into neutral, spin it around to where you haven't done, pop it back into gear, and repeat that process. Make sure the chain is clean. Once it's clean, you can then keep the bike in neutral, get your chain lube, and just spray it onto the chain by spinning the wheel. Don't need to put too much on because it's just going to flick everywhere. Just a nice coating on that chain, and then wipe off any excess with the degreaser that you've got on that cloth. And that's it. That's a really simple way of adjusting the chain on your motorcycle and making sure that chain is nice and oiled. Now, step number 5 on our list is not something you want to do every time you take the bike out, but it's something you do need to be aware of and check maybe every couple of weeks, depending on how much you use the bike really. And that's the oil. Obviously if you've got no oil, your engine's going to seize, which is not going to be great for anybody. And on this bike and on most bikes, you check the oil from the the right hand side casing, and it's just a simple case of taking off this oil cap. It's always the cap that's at the rear of the engine block there, or most of the time. Now let me just explain. There's two different types of the way you can check this oil. There's two different types of indicator. On my bike, as you can see, I have a clear glass window, and that is a simple case of looking through the glass window. It has two levels on there, low and full, and I just check visually how my oil is just by looking at that. That's very easy. Louise's bike's slightly different. If you look at this, it has, let's give that a wipe, it's got a dipstick like a car on the cap, and a lot of bikes have this now. So in this scenario, to check the oil level, I'm going to give that a quick wipe. Going to get that back on as if I'm screwing it back on, just to put it back, screw it all the way up. Let me just undo that, and then we're going to check the level on that dipstick. Now this has two markers, one minimum, one maximum. We are at the maximum there, so you can see the oil that's been dipped onto the dipstick. So I know now that Louise's oil is at the right level, so I don't need to put any in. Had I needed to put any of that oil in, I'll just put a small funnel in that hole and just tip a little bit of oil at a time. Now let me just stress that having too much oil in an engine is about as bad as having not enough. you can really damage the engine by putting too much in. So I would suggest that if your level says you need some more, just put a tiny bit in at a time, put the dipstick back in, check it. If it's not enough, a little bit more. It's a lot easier to put little bits in than too much and then have to take it out again. But the level of the oil has got to be at the maximum, or just below the maximum of the dipstick, not anymore. And a quick note about checking the oil, or actually a quick note, is a very important note about checking your oil. As you can see, I've got this bike on its centre stand. That's to keep this bike level. You can't check the oil level when the bike's leaning over on its side stand, or if it's on a hill. The bike has to be as level as you can get it, otherwise it gives you a false reading. So that's a nice little point there. Make sure your bike's level. Not all bikes have centre stands, but you can just lean it up against the wall just to make sure it's upright for that few minutes that you're checking the oil. And that's how you check the oil. I don't need to put any in here because we're all good. Yeah, that could be done every couple of weeks. And don't forget to change your oil every 12 months or sort of 5,000 miles, I think it is. It depends. You need to look in your service book to check what your intervals are, but your oil will need changing roughly once a year. Now the last step are brakes. You need brakes to stop. It's a no-brainer. No brakes, you're going to come off. But they're not the easiest things to check if you don't know what you're looking for. People don't generally know their brakes are gone until they start squeaking or they don't work. It's not something you check all the time, because generally brakes get picked up on a service if you get your bike serviced, and they will change them while they're there. But it doesn't hurt to know how to quickly look at them. Sometimes your brakes might be squeaking, you find that they're not working all that great. It's good to just be able to have a look at them and determine whether they need changing. So let me try and explain this to you. I'll try and explain it simply, but basically there's your brake there. You've got a disc and you've got this thing here, which is called a caliper. So the disc is attached to the wheel, the caliper is attached to the forks of the bike. Every time you press your brake lever up here, it sends oil down, pushes it into the caliper, which squeezes two pads onto the disc. And that's how a brake works. But it's those pads that get squeezed onto the disc, that's what we want to check. Now these pads are in effect a metal plate with some braking material on them. They usually get about 8mm, 10mm on those. Over time that material wears away until you get to almost nothing, and then it's almost like the metal of the pad, and the metal that the pad was attached to is rubbing on the disc, and that can damage everything. So all we want to do is have a quick visual look and make sure that those brake pads have got some sort of material on them, what we call meat. We want to check if they've got enough meat on them. You'll understand when I show you. It's a little bit difficult to check the front, even to see on the camera, but basically you want to have a quick look down the disc, so behind the fork, and you can see the two pads either side of the disc, and you'll see the pads have material on them that are touching the disc. We want to make sure that that's nice and thick and it's got plenty on there. If I show you the back, it might make it a bit more easy to look. Now if I show you the rear disc, it does explain it a little bit more. So same as the front, you've got a caliper. So this is the caliper, this is the disc. These two things here are the brake pads, and as you can see, this like material on the outside is the metal plate that the pad's attached to. The bit in between that and the disc is what we call the brake pad material, the meat. You know, here's the brake pad itself. We want to make sure that's got plenty on there. If that's wearing thin and this metal plate here is too close to the disc, it means the pads are really worn and they're going to need changing. And ideally you don't want to let it get that far. So you want to just check that there's enough material on these brake pads to squeeze onto the disc, so your brakes are going to work fine come rain or shine. Well, that's it. I hope that was helpful for any new riders that are coming into the bike world that are not quite sure what to do when they get a bike. These are 6 simple steps, and they're only steps that I use, and they're, in my opinion, to keep your bike in great condition and keep you safe. It really helped Louise this morning when we did the whole going through. Basically, whatever I've just showed you, I did it with Louise, and now she's confident to do all those things herself, which is amazing. But I hope this video was helpful to somebody, and yeah, if you like the content, give us a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe, because there'll be more videos coming up. there's only one last thing to do, and that's give this bike a damn good wash, because I think that's more important than anything, having a clean bike. Cheers, see you in the next one.